Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and today's video is all about this amazing Hippeastrum papilio, the butterfly Hippeastrum. Now, many people know this plant as amaryllis, but the correct name is Hippeastrum, and the queen of all of them has got to be this gorgeous butterfly queen here beside me. Today we're going to learn all about this fantastic plant because there are some very strange facts that surround how it grows in the wild and how some people cultivate it. So let's hear all about it. So here I am with my glorious butterfly amaryllis, or Hippeastrum papilio, and you can see what a fine, handsome, tall brute it really is. This is a widely grown house plant, and it comes from the tropical forests in Brazil. Now, it's an evergreen Hippeastrum, which is quite unusual because most of these bulbs, they will lose leaves at some stage coming into autumn. It's also very vigorous, which is good news for anybody who wants to grow it at home. It's quite easy, and that's also meant that given the vigour and given the fantastic look of the flowers, it has gone into many hybrids. It's the parent for many and varied hybrids. This flower is really spectacular. So the petals are cream, and it has a chartreuse throat, really spectacular, and the whole thing is thinly striped with maroon. Now, the flowers never open fully, as you can see. They kind of have this vertical aspect, and that just endears the plant to me even more. So this plant readily produces seed, but it's not self-fertile, so that means nothing will ever come of those seeds, like lilies. Now, the plant was discovered in 1967 in a garden in Brazil, and it's a relatively recent discovery, let's just say. But the strange fact today is that this plant is more generally cultivated in captivity, in an unnatural setting, in a house setting, than it is in the wild. And in fact, it's so endangered in the wild that there are only 50 plants in a 4 square mile radius where it lives naturally, which is a terrible shame. So we should all really grow this plant to make sure that it doesn't fade away. This beautiful plant was published in 1970 as Amaryllis papilio, and then later on in 97 it was moved to the Hippeastrum genus, and it was assigned to the subgenus of Amaryllis. Now, this subgenus is actually an epiphytic subgenus, and this is where it really gets interesting about this particular plant, because despite being a bulb, Hippeastrum papilio is also an epiphyte. It grows up high on trees and in leaf litter and all kinds of strange places like that. Now, this is a really interesting group of plants, the bulbs that are epiphytes, and it's very narrow. There are very few plants that fall into this category. And you would think, wouldn't you, that a bulb that is so heavy would not do well up in a tree canopy. And in fact, if you look at other genus, for example, other genera like the Myrmecodia, the ant plant that I talked about quite extensively in my recent video on codex plants, and you really should check that out if you're interested in this subject at all. But with the ant plant, it has a large codex which resembles a bulb very much. It's an epiphyte, so it lives up high in the tree canopy, but its codex is hollow. And that's very important because obviously if something is hollow, it's lighter and it's less likely to fall from the tree canopy and smash in the ground below. However, with the epiphytic bulbs like papilio here, they don't have that advantage, and they have to somehow manage to cling to the tree despite being large and heavy. Now, as you saw, I grow my papilio in a pot in a very conventional way to keep a house plant. But you are probably wondering, how might this look like if it were to be grown on a mount? And at this stage, I'm going to show you a couple of photographs that were sent to me by a gentleman called Cam in Scotland, who is growing his Hippeastrum papilio on a mount. And this particular plant that he is growing, or plants that he is growing, are in memory of my son Joshua, who died not very long ago. So it's very nice to see how this plant might look if it was growing epiphytically as it is supposed to. And I also want to mention at this point in time that a small side bulb from my particular plant was sent to a friend of mine, who is Dimitri from the Green Nerd channel, and his latest video is one where he shows this bulb, and he also is growing it epiphytically, so it's covered in moss to make sure that the roots have adequate hydration, and he keeps it on his green wall. So I encourage you to go and check out that video, which I'll link to at the very end of this, and also to go and check out his channel, as he's uploading frantically and furiously at the moment with lots and lots of interesting videos. So you're probably asking what other epiphytic bulbs are out there. And as far as I know, there are 2 Hippeastrums, which are also bulbs and also epiphytes. Those bulbs are Calyptratum and Aulicum. Now, I don't actually grow them myself. Aulicum is supposed to be quite easy to grow. It tends to be found in things like leaf litter on the forest floor and on rocks. And that variety of habitat is going to mean that the plant will lend itself quite easily to cultivation in a home environment. So do check those out if you're interested in the subject. And in terms of epiphytic bulbs as well, it is also the occasion to mention Pamiante, which is a gorgeous daffodil-like bulb. And if you're interested in finding out more about that, then please do check out the channel of Potted Jewels, my friend Liga, who has grown this from seed and has the most impressive looking bulbs in her collection now at the moment. Very, very exciting. Of course, there's also the Empress of Brazil, the Worslea, which has amazing, fantastic blue flowers. But this is a very fussy plant. It grows by waterfalls in very kind of narrow habitat. And the result of that is that it's difficult to take care of, and therefore it's really, really expensive to buy. Again, I don't have one in my collection, but if you are interested, then please go and check it out. When I was recently at Kew Gardens behind the scenes looking at the Caudex plants, I saw the most amazing Worslea they had there in the collection. Enormous, giant plants. And just at that point in time, my camera ran out of battery, so I wasn't able to record them. So that's a shame, but never mind. So if you can get your hands on a butterfly amaryllis, I highly encourage you to do so. It's relatively easy to grow, and I did make a video before about how to reflower Hippeastrums, and in that video I included information on this particular butterfly Hippeastrum. The process is pretty much the same, except that this plant, of course, is evergreen, so there are a couple of little quirky things. Anyway, I'll link to that video at the very end of this, so if you're going to get your hands on one of these plants, then you can check out how to grow it. Of course, I offer no instruction on how to grow this epiphytically because I don't do it myself. I'm talking about cultivation in a pot. The only other thing I'll mention is that if you overwater this plant, what will happen is that the leaves will yellow and drop off. It's an evergreen plant. That's not supposed to happen. So the best policy is to feed with a liquid fertilizer and ensure that it dries out between waterings. Oh, and did you notice I have a third spike coming? So on this particular plant, we have one magnificent spike in full bloom. We have a spike with another 2 flowers that's just going over, and we have a 3rd spike coming up from the base. So this is really exciting news. It's going to give me a lot of value for a long period of time. And of course the flowers last longer if it's kept in a cool position. And finally, I want to choose a winner for my Grow Light giveaway. I was absolutely delighted by the response to my recent giveaway, and I had a whopping 122 people who entered the competition, which is an amazing number, but I guess it just means that a lot of you out there want a Grow Light to be able to overwinter your collections optimally. And so I've put you all in the draw. Now I must say that 10 people had to, even though they put their names down below, they couldn't be included in the draw because they never replied to my emails asking what country they were in, or else they were in countries for which the draw wasn't eligible. Also, there were a couple more people who are in the draw because even though they were in the Netherlands, for example, they had postal addresses in the UK or Germany, which are countries that were included in the competition. So without further ado, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you here a list of all the people who are included in the competition, each of which has a number assigned to his or her name. And in just a few moments we're going to randomly choose one of those numbers, and that person is going to win the wonderful Spider Farmer Grow Light. And thank you once again to my sponsor, Spider Farmer, who has provided this very bright light for one of you to win. Now, if you didn't catch yourself on that list, I encourage you to pause the video because I'm not going to kind of dwell on it for too long. Okay, so best of luck to everybody, and I'm going to choose a number, and when I choose that number then we're going to go and look at the list again and see who's won. And what I have here is a hat, and in the hat we have all the numbers 100 to 112. So there were 10 people disqualified, as I mentioned, and I am churning them up like this, and now I am going to choose a number at random, and here we go. It's number 6. And who is number 6? Let's go and check the spreadsheet. Okay, and number 6 is actually Deanna Chaimon, who's in Canada. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. So Deanna, you have won the Grow Light. Please contact me within a week from this date to claim your prize. Otherwise I'm going to have to give it to somebody else. Okay. Thank you to everybody for taking part. I really would have loved to be able to give out more Grow Lights, and I would have also loved to have been able to open the competition up to more countries, but you know, so it goes. Thank you all for taking part. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that some of you will be encouraged to go out and look for Hippeastrum papilio, maybe even experiment with growing it epiphytically. Thanks very much for watching. Bye!